Hey guys, this is Matthew, and I'm going to be recording a walkthrough regarding the layer basics chapter in the book. And just kind of like getting started and speaking freely about layers. I love layers because they give you a lot of sort of control with your document. You can turn them on, you can turn them off, you can apply effects to layers, etc., etc. So I think this is a really important tutorial for all of us to walk through. At some points, it does get a little bit more complicated, so I'm going to be following the textbook really closely so that you guys can essentially have less confusion on your end, okay? Let's go ahead and get started. Um, as mentioned before, when I give you guys the lesson file, I don't give you the end file. I actually don't like to do that because even if yours looks a little bit different, at the end, I know that you're walking through all the steps and actually doing these things so that you can remember how to do this business later down the road. Okay, so but in general, this is how it's supposed to look when it's done. Okay, so here it's talking about how nifty and wonderful layers are, and I've kind of like given you the down low on that. It's also mentioning the whole bridge thing again, and also I kind of realized that sometimes let's see where it says Command Option Shift on a Mac or Control Alt Shift on a Windows PC machine. I think if you've been making changes to your machine, or sometimes maybe if something is just a little bit finicky, and I think the percentage of this happening would be rather low, but there's a reason why they're asking folks to restore their machine or their Photoshop rather version to the default settings at the get-go of these tutorials, and that's so that essentially everything is at square one and there aren't any hidden issues that the unique user might have implemented on their Photoshop version. And so I don't think this is 100% necessary, but if you just want to give yourself some peace of mind, I would go ahead and do that. The bridge thing is wonderful, but not everyone is going to have bridge. But I think I've mentioned in previous videos how you can go ahead and right click and open with, or I mean, you can use Photoshop just fine without bridge, okay? Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go to my Finder window and uh, as I always say at the beginning of one of these tutorial videos, please download the lesson file or files, plural, and put them somewhere safe in your course folder. I really don't think that things should be floating willy-nilly on your computer. You should learn to essentially be organized, which is really good preparation for entering a graphic design or a marketing office, because those places really depend on that, on basically different employees and designers keeping things where they need to be so that other folks can find them down the road. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to right click and open with the start file, okay, which you guys should have. So O4 start, right click, open with Photoshop, and it opens up just like this. And one of the first things that it asks us to do is to save it as a working file. And I think this is really smart and it's really good working practice for a design office, meaning you want to keep the integrity of original files that you receive. And I jokingly call it design paranoia in my classes, but sometimes if you happen to make a mistake, it's no big deal because you've got the original file to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and come up here to File, and I'm going to say Save As, so I can create a new working file. And then I like to add dash edit to my working files. The book is asking you to actually change it to, instead of start, you can call it working. So, whatever you're comfortable with, it's fine with me. So I'm going to save it. I have a folder here called tutorial, and I'm going to click save. And now up here you can see that the file name has been renamed. It's now O4 start-edit PSD, which basically means that the original start file is still safe, and we have this new one that we're going to be making changes to. Okay? Okay, so using the layers panel lists all the layers in an image, and so all of these guys are pre-packaged, and the layers pa panel, of course, is on the right-hand side over here, where I'm moving my mouse. It says if the layers panel is not visible in the work area, choose Window and then Layers. Mine is there, but of course you can come up here to Window and Layers. The checkbox is on, which is why mine is visible. Okay, folks. Um, if the layers panel lists 5 layers for the working PSD file, postage, Hawaii, flower, pineapple, and background, that is correct. So we have all those things here, okay? Um, it is saying that some of them are not visible, which I think is really interesting. So the pineapple is currently visible and the background is visible, but these other guys are not. But we can have some fun and kind of make them toggle on and off with these little light, or excuse me, eyeballs. For the time being, keep those 3 layers turned off, okay? Because again, we are going to be following this tutorial a little bit more quickly. So now it says select the background layer to make it active if it's not already selected. Notice the layer thumbnail and the icons shown in the background layer. So currently, for example, I have the postage layer active, but I want to come down here and just click on the background layer, and that's how you make a layer active. Um, I know I mentioned this in pretty much a lot of my design classes, but Photoshop is very layer based. So essentially to make a change to an item or something on a layer, you don't just go in and select the object like you would in another application such as Adobe Illustrator. Rather, you have to actually select the layer in the layers palette to activate or turn that layer on so that you can make some edits. And so that's really important to keep in mind with Photoshop. You need to select the layer that you want to make some changes to. So we have been instructed to go ahead and select the background layer. And notice how the background layer is locked. And typically that is how a background layer is, especially if you bring in a JPEG or a PNG and that kind of file. Usually it's going to be locked. Okay. The eye icon, we talked about that a little bit, where you can toggle things on and off, but it's just this cute little icon on the left-hand side. Okay. The first task for this project is to add a photo of the beach to the postcard. First, you'll open the beach image in Photoshop. So it's saying in Photoshop, choose file, open, yada, yada, yada. And so what I would actually prefer to do is I'm going to go to my Finder window, and here's the beach PSD, and it's basically asking us to open this additional file. So I'm going to say open with Photoshop. So now I actually have 2 different tabs, 2 separate Photoshop files, and we'll move on to the next step. The layers panel changes to display the layer information for the active beach PSD file. And actually, let's go ahead and look at this and notice how there's just one layer, and it also is not a background, so it's not locked. So there's no lock icon on the far right-hand side, but it is turned on. So it's not a background layer, so it can use layer features such as transparency. Renaming and copying a layer. Okay. To add content, drag and drop one or more files or Photoshop layers in a Photoshop document window. You can drag layers from a source document window, drag them from layers panel, or drag a compatible file from the desktop. So that's kind of cool. It's basically saying that you can drag things um, into Photoshop. So you'll drag the beach image into the working or edit file that I've made before you begin. Make sure that both are open and that the beach file is selected. Okay. In the layers panel, double click the name layer and press enter and keep the layers selected. Okay, so we've done that. I think this is really cool. This is actually something that I wasn't aware of. I haven't done this before, but it says choose window and then arrange. So if you come up here to window and then arrange, and then you can say, what are they, to vertical? I think this is pretty cool. You can basically have both of these guys kind of visible at the same time. And then it says select the move tool and use it to drag the beach image onto the working PSD document window. So we're gonna essentially just kind of do this and let go. And now we have, if we were to actually delete, or not delete, but close out the beach image, I want you guys to notice that a new layer has appeared. And really the reason why it did ask us to highlight the background layer is because if we're dragging something in, it wants that layer right directly above it. So essentially by selecting this background layer, we queued up where we wanted that layer to be when we dragged it over. Okay. This is really handy too. It's showing us some really nice handy moves. So instead of ha like this happens all the time where I sit down with a student and they have 50 layers called, the one's called layer one and the last one is called layer 50. And so nothing ha really has a description, which is really not advised practice as a designer, but it can get really confusing when you start creating really complex design files. And so it's basically saying, hey, give your layer a name. So we're going to double click and call this one beach. Okay. Select the move tool. We've done that. Hold down shift. I thought that was kind of cool. Like, I just kind of dragged it over. I guess if you want to, you guys can hold shift, but it seemed to work just fine for me. I guess you can copy and paste by hitting Command C and then Command V, but I think the whole drag option is pretty nifty. The beach layer is now in the edit file, layer in the layers panel, and it is between the background and the pineapple layers. And this is kind of reiterating what I think I just mentioned. Photoshop always adds new layers directly above the selected layer. You selected the background layer earlier, so yes, that's why the beach layer is right there. Now, of course, it wanted us to close the beach layer because we've added the image into our working file, so we're good. We don't need that anymore. Now it says viewing individual layers. Okay, so now this edit or working file has 6 layers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. Some of the layers are visible and some are hidden. The eye icon next to a layer thumbnail in the layers panel indicates that the layer is visible. So currently we have 2 layers on, the pineapple and the background. Here it says click the eye icon next to the pineapple layer to hide it. Okay, so we're going to make that go away for a bit. You can hide or show a layer by clicking this icon or clicking in its column, also called the Show Hide Visibility column. And now it says click again in the Show Hide Visibility column to display the pineapple. So now we're going to turn it back on. Ooh, this is fun back and forth, right, guys? Yay. Um, there's something else going on. This beach image is centered and ours is not. So I wonder if I missed something. Hold on, guys. Better go back and if you hold down shift as you drag an image from it, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so it wants us to center things. So let's turn this on for a moment. And if I hold shift, let's see. We basically want this guy right smack in the middle, but it looks like smart guides are on. But what it was really truly advising was that if you use shift when you're dragging things in, it'll automatically center the image. So I actually kind of missed that in the instructions, so I'm kind of circling back, folks, because I believe it's important that this image is right smack in the middle. Okay. So now let's go back to our textbook. Adding a border. Okay. Now we're going to add a border around the beach layer to create the impression that it's an old photograph. Select the beach layer. To select the layer, click the layer name in the layers panel. So we're basically just going to highlight it and you can kind of see, I mean, I've shown you guys you can select different layers, but right now we want the beach layer turned on. The layer is highlighted, indicating that it is active. Changes that you make to the document will affect yada, yada, yada. To make the opaque areas on this layer more obvious, hide all layers except the beach layer. Okay. So I think it's basically saying we can make the background layer invisible as well. And this is kind of like an interesting move. The background layer doesn't have any information on it currently, but if we make it go away, we're going to see this checkerboard pattern. And essentially the checkerboard pattern indicates alpha channel, which is transparency. Okay, folks? So the white background and other objects in the image disappear, leaving only the beach image against a checkerboard background. The checkerboard indicates transparent areas of the active layer. I just said that, but it's nice to have things reiterated twice. Choose layer, layer style, and then stroke. So we still have the beach layer highlighted and selected. Now we're going to come up here and go to layer, layer style, and then stroke. Okay. The dialog box opens. Now you'll select the options for the white stroke around the beach image. Okay, so it's giving us exactly what we need to plug in. It says size, 5 pixels, position inside. Okay, got that. Blend mode, normal, good. 100%. And then we want the color to be white. And what you can, right, currently it's black, of course. So click on this. And it's hiding down here to get this true black, but if we want true white, we can just drag it up to the top left-hand corner, okay, folks? And then we're going to hit OK. And look at this. Now this image has this clean, fun white border around it. Click OK. Now it's going to ask that we rearrange layers. The order in which the layers of an image are organized, it's called the stacking order, in which this can be changed. I love this about layers, by the way, that you can move them around and turn them on and off. Okay, folks. Um, Make the postage, Hawaii, flower, pineapple, and background layers visible by clicking the blah, blah, blah. Okay. Okay, so postage. Good, turn that on. Hawaii is on. Flower is on. Well, we're turning everything on. It looks like pineapple and the background layer. So everything is currently on. Yay. When you want to hide or show continuous series of layers, actually, this is a great thing that I didn't know and like until way too far down the road, if you ask me. But I used to kind of like go in and individually select these guys, but you can, and this is applicable to all Adobe applications, but you can just click and hold down and then drag and turn off layers and turn them on. So that's a real handy trick that they're talking about right there, if you ask me. The beach image is almost entirely blocked by images on other layers, so I think we're going to be moving the beach layer. In the layers panel, drag the beach layer up so that it is positioned between the pineapple and flower layers. Okay, so there's the pineapple and the flower, so we're just going to move this right there. Okay, and I'm going to do that again for you guys because I want you to notice like there's this real fun little like blue line that kind of pops up. And so that indicates where things are going in the order. Okay. So now this beach layer is nestled between pineapple and flower. Okay. And then release the mouse button. Okay, we've done that. The beach layer moves up one level in the stacking order and the beach image shows up on top. Okay. And then we're at Hawaii. Changing the opacity of a layer. Okay, this is fun. You can, and this is very handy as well. You can reduce the opacity of any layer to reveal the layers below it. In this case, the postmark is too dark on the flower. You'll edit the opacity of the postage layer to let the flower and other images show through. So select the postage layer. And remember, Photoshop is layer based. So if we want to make a change to this postage graphic, we have to select that layer. Okay, so now it is currently highlighted. And then there's an opacity slider up here, and currently it's set to 100%. And you can go to the drop down and make some changes, but I think this is pretty cool. You can just highlight the numbers and type in 25 and then hit enter. And so now the opacity has been reduced to 25%. And I'm sure you guys noticed, but now the stamp is sort of muted and it's a little bit more quiet. So that's a really handy thing, I believe, the opacity slider. Now it's, of course, asking us to save our work. Okay, so we're going to hit Command S to save, just in case, something catastrophic happens, although it rarely does, but sometimes it does. So now we're going to focus on duplicating a layer and changing the blending mode. Okay. Click the eye icons next to the Hawaii, flower, and beach layers to hide them. So we're going to hide Hawaii, excuse me, flower, and beach. So it looks like now we're really just focusing on the pineapple. Right click or control click the pineapple layer name and choose duplicate layer from the context menu. Okay. Right click, duplicate layer, pineapple copy works for me. Click OK. Now we've got two pineapples. Fun. With the pineapple copy layer selected, choose overlay from blending modes. Okay, so we're not working with the original pineapple. We're going to select pineapple copy, all right? Then we're going to choose overlay from blending modes menu in the layers panel, which is right up here. So right now it's set to normal. Choose overlay. There we go. I think this is really powerful too, this drop down. And so that might advise that you take a little bit of time just kind of experimenting with with those various functions, okay? With the blending modes. Choose overlay from the blending modes menu. And of course we made some change, or we noticed that it changed quite a bit. The overlay blending mode blends the pineapple copy layer with the pineapple's layer beneath to create a vibrant, more colorful pineapple with deeper shadows and brighter highlights. Select the postage layer and choose multiply. Okay, so now we're going to come up here, different layer, drop down, multiply. As the list of layers becomes longer, it can be difficult to locate the layer you want. You can use the search field at the top. I have to be honest, guys, I have never used the search field on the layers palette. And so I just have never found that use, but I'm kind of glad that Adobe is reminding us of these things because the truth is, I think the textbook is a great learning point regarding these Adobe applications because if you learn otherwise, sometimes you learn certain things, but you don't learn everything. And essentially that means, you guys know that phrase, old habits die hard. And so, the way that you initially learn an application kind of stays with you. All right. The multiply blending mode multiplies the color values of its layer with those of the underlying layers. In this example, areas of the postmark that are over the pineapple are darkened using the tonal values of the pineapple. That's nice. So it's basically responsive to what's happening below. Each blending mode uses different math to combine a layer with the layers behind it. And again, I think that word responsive is really apt for what's happening with these overlays. And here it's going to walk through a lot of these different sort of types. I might advise that you guys um, just read this and then maybe even kind of like experiment a little bit, but I'm going to breeze through it because I have a feeling that this video is going to end up being a little on the longer side. So, but it did ask us to save up here. So choose File, Save, or hit Command S if you like the shortcut. Resizing and rotating layers. Okay, changing the position, size, and angle of layers gives you many creative possibilities. In Photoshop, these kinds of edits are called transformations. You performed transformations in Chapter 3 with selections, and they also apply to layers. Okay. The shortcut for transformations, by the way, is Command T often. Okay, so if you hit Command T, that's the shortcut. Just a pro tip there for you folks. Click the visibility column on the beach layer to make the layer visible, okay? Because currently this is not visible, so we have to click the eyeball, and now we can see that beautiful beach image again. Select the beach layer, okay? Because remember, unless a layer is selected, we can't make any changes to it. So I've just selected or highlighted the beach layer because we're going to make some changes there. Oh, and check this out, free transform. And so edit. Oof. I usually use the shortcut. Here we go. Free transform, and there's that shortcut Command T. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead and use the shortcut because I would advise you guys try to use the shortcuts when you can, because then that'll kind of like teach you initially um, to work smarter, not harder. So Command T. So now we have the free transform function engaged. Um, yeah, here we go. Look at this. It's even saying Control T or Command T. Yay. A transform bounding box appears around the beach image. The bounding box has square handles on each corner and each side. First, you'll resize the angle, resize and angle the layer. Drag a corner handle inward to scale the beach photo down by about 50%. Ooh, they want this thing quite a bit smaller. Okay, I think that feels like 50%. I think it's interesting too if in other Adobe applications to shrink things or basically scale things up and down in order to do it um, with the right aspect ratio so things don't get distorted. You have to hold shift, but it's the opposite in Photoshop. So if you hold shift, you'll lose that ability. But if you don't hold shift, then it'll keep its integrity with the original aspect ratio. So just, another sort of thing that I'm observing here from the textbook. With the bounding box still active, position the pointer just outside the bounding box until the pointer becomes a curved double arrow. So this is, I don't think it's really, rocket science, but like if you put your cursor right there, you see how it kind of like turns into that double arrow thing that they were mentioning. Okay, fun. So we can also just type 15 up here, and now it's been angled 15 degrees. So you can also enter 15 in the rotation box in the options bar. When we feel like everything is good, we can hit the checkbox, but I'm kind of looking at this image right here, and maybe I was a little bit too conservative with, me shrinking things down. So I'm going to go ahead and just go a little bit smaller here because I'm trying to follow the textbook closely. All right. So now I'm happy with the way it looks. And so there's a checkbox up here, and I'm going to go ahead and click that checkbox. And now we've made some real nice, simple changes to the beach photo layer. Next, you'll create a new layer with no artwork on it. Adding empty layers to a file is comparable to adding blank sheets of clear film to a stack of images. You'll use this layer to add realistic looking clouds to the sky with a Photoshop filter. That's really cool. In the layers panel, select the background layer to make it active. Okay, so highlight the background layer and then click create a new layer button at the bottom of the layers panel. It's like this really cool little plus sign there. And remember, it wanted us to select the background layer because a new layer goes directly above. We kind of learned that when we were dragging the beach layer in, right? Double click the name layer one. Wants us to rename it, of course, and type clouds. That's nice because we want to be organized in our process. In the Tools panel, click a foreground color swatch. Select a sky blue color from the color picker. Okay, this is fun. So I'm going to come back to Photoshop, and here's the foreground, right? So I'm going to double click it, and they gave us a specific RGB to work with. So if we come over here, there's RGB. So I'm going to type in 48, just like the textbook says, green 138, and blue 174. And then hit OK. So now I've got a blue color highlighted. And then with the clouds layer still active, choose filter, render clouds. Okay, let's see how this goes. Filter, all right, render clouds. Whoa, that's pretty cool. And guys, you know, I use Photoshop for certain things, and I actually didn't know that that function existed. So that's pretty cool. That's like, again, I should have looked at this textbook a long time ago because I'm learning some things too. So we have that layer resolved, looking better, right? And then, of course, I like how this textbook is reminding us to save occasionally. So, of course, in order to save, you have to have Photoshop highlighted and then hit Command S, okay? So dragging to add a new layer, you can add a layer to an image by dragging an image file from Bridge or from the desktop in Explorer or the Finder. Ah, okay. So we kind of did this. I mean, previously we dragged from another Photoshop file that was open, and I guess we're going to be dragging directly from the Finder window this time, okay? So if Photoshop fills your monitor, reduce the size of the Photoshop window. So basically, it wants you to reduce the size of the Photoshop window so that you can kind of see what's going on a little bit more easily. I'm currently recording this demo on a larger screen, so I have a little bit more screen real estate to deal with. So, but you might have to follow their directions and make things a little bit smaller. Okay, in Photoshop, select the pineapple copy layer in the layers panel to make it active. And of course, because I'm not Nostradamus, I'm just kind of predicting, at this point, that it wants us to select the pineapple copy layer because it wants to put whatever's coming up above or on top, right? So since I'm using a Mac, in the Finder, navigate to the lessons folder, download yada yada yada, and navigate to the lesson 04 folder. And then there's this extra image or Photoshop document called Flower 2. Okay. And so it says, I'm going to read the directions before doing this. The Flower 2 layer appears in the layers panel directly above the pineapple copy layer. So basically, we just drag this from our Finder window into the image. So here's my Finder, right? And this is the lesson 4 tutorial. There's the Flower 2 PSD. And so if I just drag this over and let go, whoa, that was really cool. So now above the pineapple copy layer, now I have the Flower 2 layer. So it worked just fine. That was easy peasy. Now that you are done importing, you can make the Photoshop application window larger. Basically, you can start making Photoshop big again so that you can see things. Position the Flower 2 layer in the lower left corner of the postcard so that it is about half of the top flower, or excuse me, so that about half of the top flower is visible. So with the move tool selected, I'm just gonna, and by the way, I still have the Flower 2 layer highlighted. I'm just gonna move this below. And I'm also just going to I can't just reduce the size. See what I just did? I just made a mistake. I was trying to transform it without hitting Command T. So if I hit Command T, I can, um, I can transform it. So just kind of looking at this one as an example, I'm going to hit Command T, and now I'm just going to sort of make this, a more reasonable size. And I also kind of want it that I think this is cool too. You can make things hang off the side with Photoshop. And the nice thing about this tutorial is that yours doesn't have to look exactly like the one in the book, so yours can look a little bit different. Okay, so this one just has the flower, but I kind of like these two flowers, so I'm gonna go with that drop. So click the transform button to make things permanent. So there's the checkbox. Yay! So that was pretty easy. Now we're gonna add some text. Now you're ready to create some type using the horizontal type tool, which places the text on its own type layer. You'll then edit the text and apply a special effect. Fun. Make the Hawaii layer visible. There it is. Okay. You'll add text just below this layer and apply special effects to both layers. Choose select, deselect layers. So basically, like this is something that you do quite a bit in these software applications. You'll deselect so that you don't have anything selected so that you can select the thing that you want to have selected. And so basically you can come up here to select, deselect layers, and then in the tools panel, select the horizontal type tool. Okay. Then choose window, character. Okay. And I already had that open, so actually I just accidentally made it go away. So here's this window that we want open right there. Do the following in the character panel. Okay, I'm just trying to follow some directions relatively closely. I thought this was interesting. You can get this Birch standard from Adobe fonts, but I'm going to use something else. I'm just going to sort of use, I don't know, something that I've already got on hand. But it says select a condensed font. You guys can just have a little fun, right? So select a font style, regular, okay. Um, Select a large font size. We want it to be 36. So I'm going to use the drop down and select 36. Select a large tracking value. 250 is already highlighted here, but this drop down, you can make some changes. And then I think I plugged in 250 manually. I want to like go on a little side journey for a moment. Tracking is also sometimes described as kerning in the design world, and what that really means is space in between the letter forms. And so if you add tracking or kerning to typography or letter forms, it makes the text more legible. It gives the text more breathing room in between the letter forms. Okay, that's like the quick way to describe it. Then it wants the color to be something quite different. So click the color swatch and select a shade of grassy green. This is fun. And notice how it's not telling us exactly what color. It's just kind of like, I guess trusting us. So I think this is kind of fun. You can drag this around and we can be as loud as we want to be because this is just a fun tutorial. So again, we're not winning any awards with this project. We're just learning and having some fun. So hit OK. So we've got green plugged in. If the font does not have a bold variant, click the fake bold button. All right, so I'm pretty sure there's no bold icon here, but okay, I'm reluctantly following the directions here, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and click that. And I think click the all caps button. So that's this one right here, which I already have selected. I guess that's kind of handy because if you don't want to hold shift while you're typing, I guess you can hit that button. But I think sometimes I feel like the tools in Photoshop are a little bit redundant, but anyway, that's there. If you don't want to hold shift with your pinky, then you can click that button. And then select crisp from the anti-aliasing menu, and that's down here on the lower right-hand side. And so I happen to, it should be on none when you guys open it up, and mine is on crisp. And I guess that's, just going back to something really quickly. You remember in the beginning of the lesson, we were talking about setting Photoshop to like the default out-of-box version. This is a great reason why doing that is sometimes, you know, advised so that you don't get confused because these directions are very, very, I think they're really good, but if you've been kind of like playing around in your Photoshop version, it might look a little bit different. Okay. Now it says click just below the H in the word Hawaii and type Island Paradise. Okay, I can do that. So I'm going to click. First of all, I want to make sure there we go. H. And it's right now it's saying lorem ipsum, and lorem ipsum is gibberish text, and we're going to replace that with island paradise. And actually, the legibility is pretty awful with this this typeface. So I'm going to make a different decision and keep it simple. Okay, there we go. And I think the way that the tutorial has the setup. I think the text ends up being a little bit bigger. So just want to make sure that I have everything set properly. Here we go. Island Paradise. And I'm going to go ahead and commit. And you might notice that the text is currently falling off the page. Well, that's no big deal because we can move it, right? And uh, on my version of Photoshop, there are these smart guides that are showing up, which are helping me to center the text so that it lives below Hawaii really beautifully, okay? So I think this new version of Island Paradise is much better compared to the other one because the legibility was no good. I can actually read this now really nicely. The layers panel now includes a layer named Island Paradise with a T thumbnail, okay, indicating that it is a type layer. This layer is at the top of the layer stack because no layers were selected when it was created. Great, okay. The text appears where you clicked, which probably isn't exactly where you want it to be. And so again, I had to move mine, and I'm betting you guys are going to have to do that as well. I would advise that you pay attention to those beautiful magenta lines that show up in your Photoshop display, and you can basically center your text and get it to, use your eye and get it to wherever you want it, okay? Now we're going to apply a gradient layer to the Hawaii text, okay? So it says select the Hawaii layer in the layers panel to make it active. So we're done with Island Paradise for now. Let's highlight Hawaii because we want to do something there. And then it says right click or control click the thumbnail in the Hawaii layer. And I want to make sure that you guys, it told us very specifically to right click the thumbnail, not the text. So you'll get a different result if you right click Hawaii as opposed to the thumbnail on the Hawaii layer. So I'm going to right click the thumbnail and then it says select pixels. Boom. So now I have those pixels selected. Here it's emphasizing the whole business about clicking the thumbnail. All non-transparent pixels on the Hawaii layer, the white lettering, are selected. Now that you've selected the area to fill, you'll apply a gradient. Yay! This is going to be fun. Though the layer contains the word Hawaii, it is no longer an editable type layer. The text was rasterized or converted to pixels. And so just as a friendly reminder, a rasterized image basically means that it's pixelated and converted into a graphic. And so as mentioned in the textbook, you can no longer edit this text because it is a graphic now, like a rasterized graphic. In the tools panel, select the gradient tool, this guy right here. Okay. Click the foreground color swatch in the tools panel. Okay. Select a bright shade of orange in the color picker. Okay, so I'm gonna come down here and I think sometimes it's kind of nice to actually drag this around because I do want that bright orange. So I'm gonna hit OK. So now I've got this bright orange in the fill. The background color should be white. So the foreground is orange and the background is white currently, as we can see here. In the options bar, make sure that the linear gradient is selected. Okay. Linear. There we go. Method, linear. In the options bar, click the arrow next to the gradient editor box to open the gradient picker. Okay, click the arrow next to the gradient editor box. Hold on. Oh, I see now. This one right here, under basics. So we've got this one selected. Okay. Select the foreground to background swatch. It's the first one in the basics group, and then click anywhere outside the gradient picker to select it. Okay. With the selection still active, and we know it's still active because there's like this moving sort of like ant line around the text that says Hawaii, drag the gradient tool from the bottom to the top. Okay, so I'm going to do it like about right here. And notice how you can kind of like, have some fun with this. So mine's could go like that, but I kind of want to keep mine simple, and you don't want to go too far above Hawaii because you want that white gradient to be up at the top for legibility because you don't want to just fill it with the orange. You want that white gradient as well. That's going to help with legibility, okay? Release the mouse button. I just did. And now that we're happy with it, it says choose select, deselect. And then save it. Okay. So now we have a gradient in the Hawaii text. That looks pretty good. Apply a layer style. You can enhance a layer by adding a shadow, stroke, satin sheen, or other special effect from a collection of automated and editable layer styles. These styles are easy to apply and they link directly to the layer you specify. Like layers, layer styles can be hidden by clicking their icons in the layer. So you can turn layer styles on and off over here. That's basically what it's saying. Earlier you used a layer style to add a stroke to the beach photo. Yay. Now you'll add drop shadows to the text to make it stand out. So select the Island Paradise layer and then choose layer, layer style. So I'm going to come back here. There's my Island Paradise layer because I'm going to be making a change in this location. I highlight the layer, come up here to layer, layer style, and then it's asking us to select drop shadow. Like my eyes aren't seeing it. There it is, drop shadow. This dialog box is going to pop up, okay? And then it's really like telling us exactly what numbers to plug in. So multiply, change the opacity to 75%, 78 degrees, 5 pixels, just kind of plug and chug. And also just kind of notice the differences. One thing I do want to show you guys as we're doing this, because we have preview on, we can actually see it happening. Now, obviously, we couldn't see it happening because my dialog box was obscuring the view, but we can move this up above and then we can kind of like make some changes because we're designers and we have like a certain way that we want things to look. So sometimes you need to watch it in action. So the spread is 30% and the size is 10% or 10 pixels, okay? When you use global light, one master lighting angle is available in all the layer effects and that use the shading. If you set a lighting angle in one of these effects, every other effect with use global light selected inherits the same angle setting. Okay, so that's basically so we can have some nice consistency within the document, guys. To change the global light settings, choose layer, layer style, and then global light. But we're doing it kind of in here. Angle determines the lighting angle at which the effect is applied to the layer. Distance determines the offset distance. Size determines how far the shadow extends, etc., etc. Click OK to accept the settings and close the layer style dialog box. Okay. So now, as they had mentioned previously, you can come over here and you can actually turn off those effects in the layers palette, which I think is, I don't know, it's handy. All right. So showing that to you guys to reiterate, to reinforce. In the layers panel, the layer style appears nested in the Island Paradise layer. An effects heading is listed first, and under that, the layer styles applied to the layer appear. An eye icon appears. Okay, I think this is I just basically showed you guys what this is talking about. Make sure that eye icons appear for both items nested in the Pacific Paradise layer. Okay, so they're both on. This is really cool, actually. I think that they're going to ask that we duplicate these effects to the Hawaii layer. Okay, so press Option because I'm on a Mac. If you're on a Windows machine, it'll be different, but I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to click Option in the Layers panel, and I'm going to drag the effects um, down to the other layer. Okay, you ready, guys? And we're going to drag this to the Hawaii layer. finally let go. So it's thinking. So now the Hawaii text layer also has the same exact drop shadow, and that's really important for consistency. Select the Hawaii layer in the Layers panel, click the Add a Layer Style button at the bottom of the panel, and then choose Stroke from the pop-up menu. Okay, so we're doing a lot of fun stuff. So of course, we're going back to Hawaii, select the Hawaii layer, and then to reiterate, it says click Add a Layer Style button. So down here at the bottom, there's like this little effects guy. So if you click that, and then we want to add, choose stroke from the pop-up menu. So there's stroke. So I'm going to do that again because I think like that's sometimes like, especially if you're looking at this on a YouTube video, it'll be really small, but the icon, it says FX for effects. So FX, click it, and then come up here and click stroke. So now we have this new dialog box. We also have preview selected so that we can see whatever it is that we're doing, which is kind of nifty. So in the structure area of the layer style dialog box, specify the following settings. Okay, fun. So we're going to change a few things. Size is 4, position is outside. Okay. Blend mode is normal. Opacity is 100%. And then we want to change the green. So we have to double click the color. This color picker is going to pop up again. Go, I'll leave it up to you guys. I'm kind of having fun choosing some really obnoxious colors for these tutorials. Obnoxious, I mean, actually, I should say I proudly love that neon green. So I've chosen it, hit OK. Um, this is the dialog box that we're looking at currently, and it says click OK to apply the stroke. Yay. So this is kind of looking fun. It's I don't know, something. I mean, I went to Hawaii once, and I definitely this is something I would have seen at one of those tourist shop convenience stores for sure. Now it says now you'll add a drop shadow and satin sheen to the flower. Oh, okay. So scrolling down, it says select the flower layer. So here's the flower layer. Actually, I want to make sure it's turned on too. Like currently my flower layer is off. So I'm going to turn it on. And we're going to go to layer, layer style, and then drop shadow. And then we're going to add these settings. Go to normal. Opacity is going to be 60%. 13 pixels. 9%. It says make sure use global light is selected and that the blend mode is multiply. So actually come back here and change this back to multiply, please. Thank you. And this is indeed enabled. It says do not click OK yet because we're going to add something else. With the layer style dialog box still open, click the word satin. So on the left-hand side, you see this word satin? Go ahead and click it. So we just turned it on. And this can be a little bit confusing because it wants us to input some information, but nothing changed as far as the layer style dialog box. Not until you actually come over here and click the word satin. So you can toggle between drop shadow and satin in that way. So we want to change satin parameters. So click it or highlight it. Color next to blend mode. Choose a color that enhances the flower color, such as a fuchsia hue, so something kind of purpley. So double click. Let's go with something like really super magenta and intense. I like that. Okay, so I've chosen a real intense purpley color. Magenta, more like magenta. for sure. Opacity, we go 20%. Sometimes, these numbers are quite small on the screen. So 20% distance is going to be 22. It's nice that they're just kind of giving us some numbers to kind of plug in, but you guys are welcome to have some latitude and play around a little bit. I don't think it's going to rock the boat too much. Click OK to apply both layer styles. All right. And the thing that I should have been doing, I should have moved the dialog box so we could have seen the flower, basically like, the preview button. We could have seen it in action, but I think we're good either way, right? So I'm gonna hit Command 0 just so I can see everything, and I'm gonna hit Command S to save, to satisfy my paranoia. Now we're going to add an adjustment layer. You can add adjustment layers to apply. We've done this before, the non-destructive adjustment layer. You can add adjustment layers to apply color and tonal adjustments without permanently changing the pixel values in the image. For example, if you add a color balance adjustment layer to an image, you can experiment with different colors repeatedly because the change occurs only on the adjustment layer. So basically it's saying, you can add an adjustment layer, and if you want it, you can keep it, and if you don't want it, you can turn it off. We know that though. We already knew that. Select the flower 2 layer. Okay, so now we're going to come down here, select flower 2, click the hue saturation icon in the adjustments panel. So I'm going to come up here, the adjustments panel, go to the tab, then there's the hue saturation icon. Click that and notice how it is now there. And then we can make the changes. So we can change the hue to 43 according to the textbook, the saturation to 19, and the lightness to 0. Okay, so we're good there. And the issue is it kind of changed a lot of different things that are going on here, right? So that isn't quite what we wanted to happen, because instead of targeting just the flower 2, it's talking to everything. And so I have a feeling it's going to advise us on what to do next, okay? Here it's saying the changes affect the flower 2, pineapple copy, pineapple clouds, basically everything that is below, okay? And all the layers that are below it's affecting. In the Properties panel, click the Create Clipping Mask button, which is right here, okay? Click it, and so now you see it when the Properties panel displays options for a layer that can become a clipping mask, such as an adjustment layer, okay? Great. All right. An arrow appears in the layers panel indicating the adjustment layer. Excuse me, sometimes I'm trying to read too fast. Adjustment layer applies only to the flower 2 layer. That's kind of cool. Look at, there's that little arrow that it's referring to. So it's this adjustment layer is talking to that layer. Great. Fantastic. Updating layer effects. I guess this is kind of handy because, like you can go back and make some changes. So layer effects are automatically updated when you make changes to a layer. You can edit the text and watch how the layer effect tracks the change. So we're going to go back to Island Paradise. In the Tools panel, select the horizontal type tool. Okay. In the options bar, change the size by a few points and press enter or return. Okay, so let's make it a little bit smaller maybe. So let's go down to 30. And it did change it. I just saw it change. You were able to change the settings for the entire type layer, even though you didn't select the text by highlighting the characters, as you would have to do in a word processing program. This worked because in Photoshop, you can change settings for an entire type layer by selecting it in the Layers panel, as long as a type tool is selected. Pretty cool. It's a pro tip right there. Of course, now it's not centered, so we have to go back, grab the Move tool, and then maybe center it again. And actually, I think that in my circumstance with the typography or typeface or font that I chose, it works better. Now we're going to save it. Okay, it says we're going to add a border now. The Hawaii postcard is nearly done. The elements are almost all arranged correctly in the composition. You'll finish up by positioning the postmark and then adding a white postcard border. Select the Move tool and in the options bar, make sure Auto Select is disabled. Okay, so that is currently disabled. Auto Select is right here. Select the postage layer and use the Move tool to drag it to the middle right of the image as in the illustration. So basically like it wants it like around here-ish. I'm gonna, I think it looks a little bit nice on the flower, the image, and part of the pineapple. So I'm gonna leave it right there. Now, yours might look a little bit different too. You guys could even be really adventurous and you could, whoa, you could rotate yours. That's crazy, right? So I'm gonna rotate mine because I'm that kind of a crazy guy. Um, let's see what's next. Select the Island Paradise layer.
Your iPhone first.
Select the Island Paradise layer in the Layers panel and then click the Create a New Layer button. Sorry, I got distracted. My iPhone inadvertently wanted to talk to me. Select the Island Paradise layer in the Layers panel and then click Create a New Layer button at the top. Okay, so it wants to basically create a new layer right above. So click the plus sign as advised. Okay, choose Select All. Okay. Choose Select Modify Border. Select Modify Border. And then we're going to do a 10 pixel width for the border. So when you're ready, go ahead and click OK. Select white for the foreground color. Okay, so I'm going to double click here and we're going to get rid of the really beautiful orange that I'm kind of in love with. Change it back to white. All right. In the Fill dialog box, choose foreground color from the Contents menu and click OK. Now it says choose Select and then deselect. Hold on, guys. I want to make sure I'm following this correctly. So Edit and then Fill. My bad. In the Fill dialog box, choose foreground color from the Contents menu and click OK. There we go. Choose Select and deselect. I almost missed an important step. Did you guys see that? Double click the layer one name, the layers panel, and of course it wants us to name the layer properly. That's pretty much it. So I'm gonna hit Command S. I think mine looks relatively similar compared to this example. Truthfully, I think my green turned out better, and I think the flower looks really nice the way that I placed it. I'm sure that you guys are gonna do just fine as well. Okay. Here it's gonna talk about flattening, and you guys like if you're turning in documents to me, I would actually prefer that you do not turn in flattened documents because I want to see all the beautiful layers that you've been working on. But they are showing us something really important, and that's that, what if, for example, you don't want to send the full Photoshop document version to a client or an individual for whatever reason? Maybe you haven't been paid yet, or I don't know. You'll have your reasons. So you can send them maybe a flattened file. So this is kind of fun. You can go to Choose Image and then go to Duplicate. If I can find it, there it is, Duplicate. And I'm just going to call mine dash flatten. Edit and then add flatten. Okay. And then it creates this new version over here. And notice how it's not saved actually. This one is indeed saved. So we can actually close that out. And just as a reminder, choose flatten image from the layers panel. So if you just come over here, layer, and then flatten is down here, flatten image at the bottom. It's a little sad, but all of our beautiful layers just disappeared, and now all of them have been compacted onto one background layer. And then if we hit Command S, we can save that to our working lesson 4 or project 4 folder. Okay? Phew, you guys, I know that was a longer tutorial. I feel like these things are getting more complicated, and I hope that you're getting more comfortable with the software. And also, like, first and like, really, it's just so important to me that you guys are having fun. Okay? This might be new to you. It's one of my favorite things about design is it's just fun software. And just the idea that you can spend your life just kind of tinkering and playing with this stuff and working in a marketing office and hopefully sipping good coffee and telling jokes, in the conference room or whatever. So I really want all of your dreams to come true, and I also want you guys to learn the software and while you're having some fun. So that's enough for today. I'm going to hit Command S. I'm going to save it, and I'll see you on the other side.